Welcome to Social Work 240 Session 4. This session is focused on qualitative interviewing and research proposal development. Semi-structured interviews are the most commonly used type of qualitative interview. Interview guides are used in semi-structured interviews, and they include several predetermined open-ended questions. However, the interviewer is also expected to add follow-up questions that emerge based on the participants' responses. Semi-structured interviews are most commonly used because they provide some level of structure and consistency across interviews and also allow for the type of in-depth responses that are needed for qualitative analysis. Informal or conversational interviews are most often used in ethnographic research, while the researcher is involved in observational data collection. During ethnographic observation, a researcher may have conversations with participants that are informal in nature. Responses from these conversations are then used as a piece of the data within the larger observational study. Standardized open-ended interviews are used sometimes in qualitative data collection when there's a need for total consistency across all interviews, because all the questions are listed out and researchers do not elaborate on these questions. The benefit of using this type of interview is strong reliability in data collection, but the downside is that the data may not have the depth and details needed for a rich qualitative analysis. Sampling in qualitative interviewing was described last semester as usually involving non-probability or non-random sampling, and this is because qualitative research is often exploratory, which means that not much is known about the topic and it can be difficult to find potential participants. In exploratory research, convenience or availability sampling is often used, which includes participants who are available and willing to participate. And snowball sampling is also often used in exploratory research, which involves identifying a small number of people who meet the criteria for inclusion in your study, and then asking those participants to recommend others they know who also meet the criteria, so that the sample grows like a rolling snowball. Qualitative research might also be evaluative, and therefore the researcher would want to talk to particular people who have knowledge about the program that is being evaluated. In this type of research, purposive sampling is often used, in which a sample includes participants who are selected specifically because they have some characteristic the researcher is interested in studying. For example, staff who are implementing a program that is being evaluated, or key informants who have specific knowledge about some aspect of the program or research topic. When creating a semi-structured interview guide, questions should generally be open-ended, because open-ended questions usually result in more information than yes or no questions. Neutral, so that people feel comfortable expressing themselves. Questions should be worded clearly, and also incorporate knowledge of any terms particular to the respondent's culture. In addition, questions that begin with why should be used with caution, because the word why can imply a judgment or produce a defensive reaction among participants. Qualitative interviews include a greater level of depth than do focus groups. Because of this, there are additional ethical issues to consider when using qualitative interviews. First, there could be unanticipated harm during the qualitative interview. In the process of discussing personal issues, the discussion may develop in ways that are not anticipated. Participants may experience emotional discomfort as a result of remembering past experiences or being asked to recall their feelings about events. Researchers need to be aware of this risk and offer the participants opportunities to stop the interview, stop discussing certain issues if they choose, or to access resources to help them with their feelings, such as friends, family, or professional support. It's also important to remember the distinction between a qualitative interview for research and a clinical assessment for social work. In a therapeutic setting, the interview process would include efforts to support and help the client, Well, in a research setting, the interview process is focused on exploring issues in order to understand a research topic. And so in that setting, the researcher would not provide professional support to the participant, but would instead help the participant find support from another source. The second ethical issue is that the confidentiality of participants must be maintained. Participants need to know that their names won't be connected to their statements, their names won't be connected to the research in general, and that the researcher themselves won't share the identity of participants with other people either. Communicating this protection of participants' information helps the participant to feel safe in expressing themselves. Effectively informing the interviewee about the nature of the study is another ethical issue. Researchers should tell the participant what the study is about. Sometimes this is difficult because the study may evolve and change over time, because that's the nature of qualitative research. It's helpful to offer the possibility of more than one interview in case the participant has more to say, and also in case you realize that you need more information on a topic. Researchers should complete the consent process for every follow-up contact with the participant so that the participants do not feel pressure to participate. In addition, reducing the risk of exploitation is a final ethical concern. Researchers should acknowledge the contributions of participants through incentives or opportunities to see the results of the research. In addition to ethical issues in qualitative interviews, we can apply the transcultural perspective to the qualitative interviewing situation. One perspective on the qualitative interviewing process is that the social roles of researcher and participant influence the nature of the interview and the quality of the data. Due to the inequities in social roles between the researcher and the participant, the research process could become oppressive or invasive. As a result, it is essential for researchers to understand their own positionality and to practice self-reflexivity during the interview process. The researcher is aware of their own social role and how that may be influencing the participants' feelings and responses. Sensitivity to social roles during the interview process also helps to communicate a sense of respectful partnership between the researcher and the participant, so that both feel that they are creating knowledge together. Respectful partnerships also help to communicate to participants the value and importance of their own personal story, so that participants leave the research interview feeling empowered because their story is contributing to knowledge development. Your main task as an interviewer is to help interviewees to talk freely and openly about the research topic, and to ask questions and follow-up questions that help the participant provide rich and detailed descriptions, which are needed for analysis. In order to help the participant feel comfortable in answering the interview questions, it's important for researchers to build rapport with the participants. And it's especially important to establish rapport in the beginning of the interview because participants often feel unsure about how to answer questions. Starting the interview with broad and non-threatening questions that reflect the research topic can be a helpful way of easing this initial uncertainty. Repeating the question in a different way can help the participant give them more time to think about what to say and to understand the nature of the question. The following is a list of interviewing tips for qualitative interviews. First, remember to put questions in a straightforward, clear, and non-threatening way. If participants are feeling confused or defensive, you will not get clear information from them. Also, remember to listen more than you speak. The interviewer should not be sharing their own personal experiences and opinions. Number 3, eliminate cues which lead interviewees to respond in a particular way. Participants may want to give what they believe is a correct answer, and so it's important that the researcher try to not endorse particular responses as better or worse than others. It's also important that researchers avoid imposing their own structures and assumptions in their questions. Number 4, maintain a friendly and interested demeanor by being interactive and sensitive to the language and concepts used by the participant. And in addition, aim to go below the surface of the topic being discussed by exploring what people say in detail with follow-up questions like, can you provide me with an example of that? Or when that happened, what were you thinking, feeling, seeing, etc. Now we'll spend a few minutes focusing on the research proposal assignment and the module for this week. You now have 3 possible topics for this assignment. Your task this week will be to take each of these topics and first turn them into research questions. And second, categorize what type of research questions they are, either exploratory, explanatory, or both. So a research proposal is a paper that explores a topic by considering a specific question about that topic. The question is developed after considering first what information already exists about this topic. Your goal is to create a research question that has not already been answered by other researchers, while also incorporating into your research question an understanding of what is already known about this topic. At this stage in the process, the research questions that you develop from your 3 possible topics may still change as you move forward with the assignment. For example, a possible research topic is the overrepresentation of Latino children in the child welfare system. This is a research topic that needs to be changed into a question for a research proposal paper. First, I need to consider what information already exists on this topic. When I go to the academic databases through the SJSU library and I enter in the main terms from the topic as search terms, I get just one article, which is a relevant article, but I need more information to create a well-informed research question. When I expand the search terms using the words Hispanic and child welfare system, I get 31 hits. Varying your search terms in this way is the best way to get information on your topic. After reviewing the titles and abstracts of these 31 articles, some are directly relevant while others are not. It's useful to obtain and read more closely the articles that are directly relevant for your possible topic. This process helps me to get a sense of what previous research has said on this topic so that I can develop a research question that is original, specific, and well-informed. Information on this topic suggests that there may be many factors that contribute to the overrepresentation of Latino children in the child welfare system, and those are represented here in this model with the topic in the middle. This type of model is too complicated for a research proposal paper. It would be very difficult to develop a specific research question from this model because there are so many factors that can contribute to this issue. So although we know that in the real world, all of these factors may be related to the overrepresentation of Latino children in the child welfare system, I need to narrow this topic down in order to create a research question. This process leads me to a specific research question that I can focus a proposal on. What is the influence of citizenship status and poverty on the overrepresentation of Latino children in the child welfare system who are placed in foster care? The next question to consider is, what type of research question is this? For this assignment, research questions can be exploratory, explanatory, or both. Exploratory research approaches ask open-ended research questions that are focused on learning more about a topic that we do not know much about, or also exploring a topic that is hard to study using other research approaches, including topics that explore things like perceptions, experiences, feelings, or processes. An explanatory research approach begins with a specific idea or prediction about how variables are related to one another. Within an explanatory research approach, we use the terms independent and dependent variables. Research proposals can incorporate both exploratory and explanatory approaches by examining a topic from various perspectives and proposing the use of both quantitative and qualitative data. For this example, I am defining this research question as both exploratory and explanatory because I want to propose a study that explores this question in a qualitative way from the perspectives of a small number of parents and children, and also in a quantitative way with a large sample to look at the experiences of many families. Researchers do not elaborate on these questions. The benefit of using this type of interview is strong reliability in data collection, but the downside is that the data may not have the depth and details needed for a rich qualitative analysis. Sampling in qualitative interviewing was described last semester as usually involving non-probability or Welcome to Social Work 240 Session 4. This session is focused on qualitative interviewing and research proposal development. Semi-structured interviews are the most commonly used type of qualitative interview. Interview guides are used in semi-structured interviews, and they include several predetermined open-ended questions. However, they are non-random sampling, and this is because qualitative research is often exploratory, which means that not much is known about the topic and it can be difficult to find potential participants. In exploratory research, convenience or availability sampling is often used, which includes participants who are available and willing to participate. And snowball sampling is also often used in exploratory research, which involves identifying a small number of people who meet the criteria for an interview. Interviewer is also expected to add follow-up questions that emerge based on the participants' responses. Semi-structured interviews are most commonly used because they provide some level of structure and consistency across interviews and also allow for the type of in-depth responses that are needed for qualitative analysis. Informal or conversational interviews are most often used in ethnographic research, while the researcher is involved in observational data collection. During ethnographic observation, a researcher may have conversations with participants that are informal in nature. Responses from these conversations are then used as a piece of the data within the larger observational study. Standardized open-ended interviews are used sometimes in qualitative data collection when there's a need for total consistency across all interviews because all the questions are listed out and